Vanakkam. Welcome to this course on biomedical instrumentation. This is week 7. From this week, we will start focusing on other measurement systems such as EEG, electroencephalography, and EMG, electromyography. In this video, we will look at the structure of a neuron, central nervous system, and a reflex arc. Note that this is an extremely brief video of a huge topic. I have 2 courses on neuroscience of human movements, 30-hour course called Neuroscience of Human Movements, in which I discuss the movement related circuitry of the brain, and classics in neuroscience, which discusses the classic studies that led to the development of neuroscience as a field. Both are 30 hours or 12-week courses. So much content is there, but this video is part of the biomedical instrumentation course. So, I am going to give an extremely brief overview of the topic. Those who are interested in neuroscience can do these courses and other neuroscience courses that you are interested in. So, I am going to be extremely brief and just give the most essential that is necessary for the biomedical instrumentation course. Okay. So, the fundamental unit of the nervous system is the neuron. This is a typical neuron that has a cell body. This is the cell body, also called as the soma. Right. There are these, it receives information into the cell body through these branches. These branches are called dendrites. These are called dendrites. And then it sends information to other neurons or other excitable cells through branches of these called, these are axons and axon terminals. Axons are covered by a specialized type of cells called glial cells. These are called, these covered like having an insulator around a conductor. You have myelin sheath. It is not a continuous sheath like the insulator, but rather there are these gaps here. There is a, so there is a, let us say that is the axon, this is one myelin sheath, and then this is the next myelin sheath. In between there are these nodes of Ranvier that is present. In this picture it is not visible, but it is there. So, this cell body essentially contains a soma and essentially acts as an information integration place, the space where information is getting integrated. Then you have dendrites, that are branches that receive information from other neurons. Then axons are long cables or long fibers that carry information away from the cell body or soma, and those are insulated by linings of myelin sheath that enable faster transmission. How does this enable faster transmission? I have discussed in my other courses, please do check. And then there are these axon terminals. Oh, it is already written here. Okay, axon terminals. These essentially release neurotransmitters to chemically communicate with other neurons or other excitable cells. For example, this might be a motor neuron that might communicate with the muscle. So, this terminal will then communicate with the muscle cell, thus activating that muscle cell or be part of that neuromuscular junction. The central nervous system essentially is the body's control center, essentially controls and coordinates all the activities of the body. It essentially contains the brain. Central nervous system, many people think central nervous system means the brain. No, actually, central nervous system means brain and the spinal cord. Central nervous system comprises the brain and the spinal cord. Brain controls higher order things like thoughts, memory, emotions, sensory processing, movement control, can be divided broadly into cerebrum, cerebellum and brainstem. Subcortical structures, several are there, not included in the discussion. And then there is the spinal cord that connects to the rest of the body and the brain. It essentially connects the brain and the rest of the body, and it relays signals from the brain to the rest of the body, and it also controls reflexes. Important to note is that in the adult CNS, neurons cannot regenerate. That is a classic difference. In the adult human central nervous system, neurons cannot regenerate. Very important to note. Second, that reflexes do not involve brain. Reflexes are controlled primarily through the spinal cord. Remember this. So, together these, the central nervous system essentially receives and processes sensory information, then sends out appropriate action commands or motor commands, and then it integrates higher level functions like thinking, emotion, feeling, decision making, executive control, so many other things. A reflex arc is the simplest neural pathway that enables what is apparently an automatic response, a fast automatic response to some stimulus. For example, the most common example is the T reflex, in which case you tap the tendon just below the knee and then there will be a response, that is called as the knee jerk reflex, is it not? Knee jerk reflex, commonly called as a knee jerk reflex, or the tendon tap reflex. Tendon tap reflex. There are several steps in the reflex arc. First is the receptor that detects the stimulus. It might be, in this case, the tendon tap, the mechanical stimulus, and then there is a sensory neuron that transmits the information to the spinal cord. In many cases, this might be a proprioceptor. Proprioceptor means there are at least two types of proprioceptors: muscle spindles and Golgi tendon organs. Those that can measure muscle length and muscle velocity of shortening of muscles, and force or tension in the muscle. This may be a proprioceptor neuron that receives information and then receives information from the periphery and then transmits it to the spinal cord, not to the brain, to the spinal cord. And then in the spinal cord there is integration processes that is there in the spinal cord, that then gives a command to the motor neuron that carries the response signal from the CNS, in this case the spinal cord. When you say CNS, in this case you are referring to spinal cord, right? And then there is an effect that you see on the muscle or the organ that produces the response. Example, in this case there is a hot or nociceptive stimulus. There is a hot or a sharp object, you keep your hand and then you withdraw. This is actually a relatively slow response. The tendon tap reflex is a lot faster. I have 1 or 2 weeks of content in neuroscience of human movements that is dedicated to the study of reflexes, okay, that I have discussed in neuroscience of human movements in great detail. So, to discuss that in a single slide, it's a little bit challenging. Essentially, these reflexes provide crude, rapid, relatively fast protective actions before the brain processes take over and provide more contextual responses. The common examples are the knee jerk reflex or the tendon tap reflex and the withdrawal reflex in response to nociceptive stimulus or painful or harmful stimulus. So, with this we come to the end of this video. In this video we looked at typical structure of a neuron, what is the central nervous system, and we defined the reflex arc. With this we end this video. Thank you very much for your attention.